Minutes of last meeting, March 6th. Everybody get a chance to look at them? Anybody wants to make any kind of motion on that?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting in March.
Second out of Barry. And any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Correspondence from Public Road Point Partners, EDA.
So, Grove Point, otherwise known as Ram Point, has approached the town, looking to set up a meeting on May 7th. We have one scheduled tentatively with them to discuss the lease of the riparian lease, which for those of you who were here when that was negotiated a few years ago under Ram Point, that's the section that if you went to the Endosol Pond Road, from the Endosol Pond Road to the north towards the bridge at Route 1, the overpass along the river and the park area, that's the riparian lease. So I've tried to give you like some high level notes on what's going on over there, what they're paying, the area that it encompasses, the services, etc. Some information if you are not familiar with the company who now owns Ram Point Marina, and also the original memo when the lease was renegotiated, and then subsequently I transferred, for lack of a better description, I guess, to Grove Point Partners out of Wilmington, Delaware. I think their offices are actually in Florida, Miami, maybe. So there's two. They have the property where their businesses are proper, the buildings, most of the docks, where the boats are stored in the yard, work is done, etc. Which was 30 years. That lease was negotiated when the Schmids owned Ram Point Marina, and then Ram Point assumed that. So that is not the subject of this discussion, I don't believe. It's just the riparian 5-year, which is coming due to be renegotiated in 2026. So you can see how much they're paying for that specific area, and the thought process under now, I think it was under Rob Zernetsky, of separating that riparian lease out was to give the town flexibility and not lock it up for 5 years because it was adjacent to the park. There was talks about doing the master plan, possibly connecting the park to the other side of Route 1 into town. You know, a myriad of other things, transients, public access, launch areas for canoes and kayaks, and kind of tossed around a bunch of different ideas. So that was the thought process behind having the shorter period. And if you remember, there was discussion about dredging that area because Silver Spring had done their side, but Ram Point wasn't able to find a place to dispose of the spoils because I think they didn't want to use the CAD system up in the Providence River. So they didn't get on board with dredging their side of the river when Silver Spring did theirs, but I know that was something that had come up on the initial conversations back when when Grove Point first assumed the lease. They tried to roll the 5-year lease into their 30-year lease and make the whole area under that one lease. And the town opted to not do that. And just a reminder that you oversee Marina Park and operations down there, but you don't actually participate in this group. The commission doesn't participate in the negotiations of the actual lease terms itself. But certainly you can make recommendations to staff and council if you choose to. But since this is coming up in May, we wanted you to be aware that it was happening, and if there's any discussion or anything that you folks want to forward up, fine. If not, it's just for your information.
seen anything, going around that the thought process being any different to, holding it short so that, it can go into a master plan and maybe get a public, more of a direct public use?
There hasn't been any conversations really internally at this point. There was Grove Point who approached the town and said they wanted to have a meeting to discuss their lease. And that's as far as it went.
Right.
I mean, given the clear intent to move forward with the development of a master plan, I mean, I think it makes sense to keep that lease short, you know, from that perspective, at least till we see what happens with that master plan development. So I mean, that would be my recommendation from, you know, my seat on this commission.
So the position we had originally, no change?
You had a position which is outlined in the memo that went to the council.
Right.
If you look at the second to the last page of text before you get to the aerial that shows the different lease areas, there was a position you folks took. If you want to refresh your memory on that. Get some background music while you deliberate. Live show tunes in the background.
That's new.
Would there be any, reason to reiterate this to the town council before their May meeting?
Sure. It's not the town council meeting. It'll first be staff. They're gonna meet, most likely myself, Terry Murphy, Jim Manny, probably Luke Murray. So it's just a discussion at this point. Their lease is not up. So I'm not sure what specifically they're asking for. The last time they wanted it rolled into their 30-year lease. I would assume that probably they're gonna be their angle again, and or securing the next, you know, however many years that they can get out of a subsequent term. But you know, certainly you folks, you know, have oversight over that area down there, and anything that you want to communicate would be part of the deliberations, you know, with the manager's office, who ultimately will, you know, make the recommendation on where to move.
So we wouldn't pass this off to the town council at this time, but we could send it to staff?
It would go to, the manager's office would do all the negotiations, and then once an agreement is reached, that agreement would be given to the town council with a recommendation, and they would review it and ultimately make the decision.
Right, but the recommendation would come from the town staff.
Correct, yep.
So we should put the position again in front of the town staff.
If you'd like to, you can do that,
I
yep.
think it would be a good idea.
I support that, and I would tie it back into the forthcoming master plan too, because that wasn't, if I recall, wasn't on the table when we had when we put that position together. So I wouldn't change anything else in the current position, other than I would just add a bullet tying it to the forthcoming master plan.
So just reiterating to understand what you're saying, you're reiterating the documented position you folks had from 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and then adding that the master plan, you know, we'd like to have the master plan in place.
Yeah, before we
considering,
you know, before we put forward a recommendation on a 30-year lease.
I don't know if that's the
Yeah,
term they're asking
or
for. It could just be
long-term.
that they want to get the next 5 years. I don't know, but I know the initial ask was.
Regardless of the time, it should be a consideration. Either
Yeah.
it's 5 or 30, so just something generic that says.
Yeah, I'd just like, is Jamie in on this too, Rabbit?
No.
No? Yeah, just a reminder.
I mean, they have haven't come up with any capital plan, improvement plan or anything. There's nothing
We've
that's
seen-
changing, so.
We've seen nothing in writing, and the physical observations of what's going on down there is that they've done virtually no large-scale capital improvements. They replaced the failing wooden gangways with aluminum gangways. And they've replaced deck boards on docks as needed. I think they cleaned the siding on the building, but other than that, I don't think that they've, beyond things that needed to be addressed because they were breaking, I don't think that they've done any major improvements down there, and they haven't shown the town that they're looking to do that. They certainly raised the rates, depending on what slip you're in, up to 44%. Since they took over ownership
Sure.
of the property. And now they're the highest in the upper pond. I think Marina Bay is with them or close behind them if not.
And there's no, this little section is kind of an oddball section that you really don't need to do anything to keep operating a business to it. It's not as if they've come forward with any plans.
No, I mean, they talked about wanting to dredge the river and wanting some assurances of long-term viability of that section in order to make that decision. But that, they were in a lease, 10 years before that, and they didn't make a move on that. And also, I think it's around $3,500 a year that they're up to now. It was like $200 and something a month that they're paying, and some of the slips they're getting like just under $6,000 a year. So they obviously have a vested interest in maintaining that because there's not a lot of services down that end, and they're taking all that profit, off of those slip fees.
Yeah, their perimeter extends to the center of the channel. Their marina perimeter extends to the middle of the channel.
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I know that those docks were kind of like added like as the years went on. Like it wasn't part of their initial lease. And if you look back at the aerial photographs over the years, those docks kind of appeared as the years went on. I think the town allowed that and agreed to that. But I don't think, to your point, I don't think that it was part of the initial marina perimeter. Whether that was ever incorporated in it, I don't know the answer to that. When I've gone to CRMC to get copies of marina perimeters, they don't seem to be able to provide them to me. So, which is, I wanted to see what the marina perimeters were, and they couldn't just hand me a document or point me to a location that said, oh yeah, here's what it looks like.
Do we need a motion to move that back to the town councils?
It's gonna happen regardless. I think if you folks wanna go on the record with something that you want to be taken into consideration, this would be the appropriate time to do that before discussions are had with them.
Yes.
But that's entirely up to you folks.
No, I think it's worthwhile to reiterate this position and add the idea of a master plan for the park. What was the name of whatever's going on in there? Did you happen to notice on the board?
No, I didn't.
Strangling cats.
Young children singing.
I'll never complain about my kids' chorus practice again, that's for sure.
Okay.
So if that's what you wanna do, you probably need a motion.
Motion, okay.
And a vote.
Anybody wanna make a motion? Yeah.
I'll make a motion to reiterate the previously stated point from the commission, with the inclusion of the forthcoming master plan for consideration.
Were there any dates, timelines, terms?
I mean, it's the idea that 5 years, a 5-year renewal is, based on the fact that the town's, plan to do something with that in the future, I think strongly,
Yeah.
strongly.
And we need, the town would
Reinforce
need at
that.
least 5 years to do the plan and even think about
Yeah.
implementing it.
Sure.
So, I guess to just further clarify, your motion, stay with the current your recommendation is to stay with the current 5-year term on the riparian lease, if that's what the discussion is?
Yeah, I mean, I would defer to the rest of the commissioners on that, but I think, you know, I'm not so much concerned about 5 years, 1 year, or 30 years. I think anytime they're going to enter a negotiation on lease length, they should be considering that, and hopefully they come to the conclusion that it should be a fairly shorter lease, so.
I think you should keep the 5.
Yeah, I'm fine just staying with the 5, if that's.
Because it'd probably take at least a couple of years to get off the ground with doing a plan.
Right, I mean, right now, the master plan is in next year's out year, so it wouldn't be, the funding, if approved, wouldn't be available starting July 1, 25. It would be, if they continue on the trajectory that it's planned, it would be starting July 1, 26, where the funding is even allocated for the master plan. And then, to your point, you'd have to roll that out. You'd have to hire a company, design that master plan, roll it out, have it approved by everybody.
Yeah, and that section should go, as part of a master plan, should be looked at as accessible to the plan, not excluded because it's under lease.
Right.
Okay.
You need a second and a vote, if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
gonna maintain that, or if you wanna amend your time frame or incorporate the time frame.
I'll
or whatever.
incorporate the 5-year timeframe
Okay.
into my original statement.
And anybody want a second?
I'll second it. I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to old business and the Marina Park boat ramp. Ditto from last month?
No, we have movement.
No way.
So the town council awarded a bid at the last meeting to Gooseberry Dock Building to fix the sinking, listing float under the gangway and remove the pile of stone at the end of the ramp. So that is in process with finance right now. Hopefully by the end of this week, he'll have the green light to hopefully get over there as soon as possible and get to work. There's just some paperwork stuff, W-9s and that kind of thing that need to be processed. The handrail on the walkway, we had a pre-bid meeting where the initial thought to put the posts for the stainless steel rails, basically core drill the concrete walkway and have them in the concrete. The contractors who showed up didn't feel confident in the quality and craftsmanship of the path, the concrete that was poured to do that, and felt it would crack. So they came back with some suggestions about putting a concrete lip on the edge and then putting it in there. There was some back and forth. Long story short, the new requested plan is to flush mount with anchors. So the bottom of the rail would have plates, and then it would be flush mount with anchors. That way they don't have to excavate all along the path again and potentially disturb the path, break the path, etc. That bid closes tomorrow morning, so we should have an answer hopefully on contractors' bids and how much that'll cost by tomorrow. So that's moving. So hopefully we'll get the dock situation and the ramp situation within the month, and then the handrail closely behind that.
Okay. Great. The harbor management plan is percolating, right?
We've heard nothing from CRMC and DEM. Same as last month.
Yep.
We provided
Oh.
feedback to them, and they did not respond.
Under Marina Park boat ramp, where do we pick up the additional parking?
It's on another item, item F, is the
F?
parking.
Okay, yep. All right, harbor management plans going on, rights of way, any of that stuff changed, Mike and C?
Yeah, so the highway department did go down and remove all of the boats at Washington Lake and Park. anything that was left there. If you recall, we had, they had installed some signs that said they needed to be removed by December 1st. I think we took 15 oats out of those areas that nobody claimed. We have them at the highway garage. So if somebody wants to make a claim on them, they have that ability before they're disposed of.
Was that advertised?
It's not advertised, no. They went down and cut all the knotweed down at Lake Avenue, so that's at least a little bit cleaned up. And they did install signs. This wasn't something that we talked about, but they did install signs referring to the ordinance that prohibits boats from being stored there. That kind of dovetails with the recommendation that you folks have for updating the ordinance. I anticipate that most likely will be on an April council agenda to be reviewed. So I'm not sure how this plays out going forward in the summer. We'll kind of just handle it as it comes, the signs versus the ordinance, because I don't think we'll have the physical stuff in place in time for summer, just based on what parks staff bandwidth is to handle projects like that right now. But we'll see. We'll roll with it as it goes.
Was Bill McCusker one of the people you included in, has left?
I think he is, yes.
He is, okay. Okay, boats and waterway ordinance revisions, updates. Anything changed there?
You folks were gonna look at, I believe, transient mooring regulations from other municipalities and dinghy dock regulations, and come back and talk about it at a future meeting. I don't know if that's this meeting or another
Yeah,
meeting.
I've not completed that yet.
All right, coastal road and public right-of-way to the water survey and monumentation, Charleston Beach Road.
Yeah, so with the tax assessor's office and the planning department, GIS specifically, they've gone now and taken the old plat map information, which has to be translated, for lack of a better description, to like the new plat maps. So they're going back and getting the history of everything, so that when we put this out to bid, if there's anything, we don't want to leave, we want to do this once, we want to do it right. We don't want to leave anything out. So the history on each plat is currently being laid out, or so that we can have a definitive list that will then go out to bid, so that when we survey the road, we'll also survey any properties that can be included as known public property.
Yeah.
And also through that process, we'll get any ambiguous ones that then we can go after to do title work on. So that's ongoing. I just saw that the other day. They have a whole size of this table, paper laid out and drawn out and superimposed, and they're working on that.
Great.
So hopefully we'll get that going pretty soon.
Okay, the expanded parking lot, F.
So Mike and I went to the rec commission meeting, had some good discussion at length with the rec commission about their concerns for pedestrian access to the park and removal of the path, and some of their concerns. Ultimately, think that they concur with your folks' recommendation to remove the path and open that all up for parking. And then the issue is that staff time and availability to do the work. So we did have a meeting on site with an outside vendor about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And they're gonna give us a proposal of how much it might cost if we were to just hire a vendor to come in and mirror that stonework back to, the highway with like a 10-foot buffer. So we're waiting that right now to see if we can move forward quicker than we will be able to with staff resources.
So that rec commission did have their vote, so we're in sync with them.
Great.
Okay, new business.
I have no new business for you.
Okay, harbor master report.
Mooring renewals are out. It seems to be going without a hiccup so far. On the 2 patrol boats, PB2 is operational, ready to be used whenever needed. At the police station on the trailer, PB1, unfortunately, the fuel tank has been compromised again. So this is the 3rd time that the fuel tank is leaking. It's the same situation that happened last time, same locations. Whatever type of electrolysis is going on in that tank was not resolved by the vendor. The last time or the time before, we did get more years this time, but also they used a heavier gauge tank. So maybe that's why. So that's currently being evaluated at Ocean House with the idea that we're gonna put a temporary poly tank somewhere on the boat. It'll have reduced capacity, so obviously we'll have reduced capabilities and range, but that'll help us hopefully still be able to utilize it and limp through till next spring when the new boat arrives. The bid for the 2 years of treatment of hydrilla at Indian Lake is out public right now. So tomorrow, actually, those are due. So we should have hopefully a vendor selected. We met again on site at Warden's Pond with DEM for the wash station. Sometime after April 11th, town staff will install that CD3 unit, the boat cleaning unit, at Warden's Pond once the dock is installed, because we need them to move the dock and ramp to do the installation. This weekend, Narrow River Preservation Association is hosting their annual Navigating the Narrow forum, boating safety forum. I'll be attending that again this year and sitting on the panel. And we awarded or the town council, I should say, awarded a contract to GZA to move forward with the development designs for Noyes Farm property. So you should start seeing some engineering work up there to be able to develop that property, get a parking lot installed, and then the trail system developed. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to the next meeting on Thursday, May 1st, followed by an adjournment if someone wants to make a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
No discussion needed.